I didn't plan to change anything. But last week, something shifted. Something so small, no one noticed, except me. And it unraveled something I didn't know I'd been holding in. I pulled another clump of hair from the brush this morning. Not dramatic, not alarming, just familiar by now. I've started brushing over the sink, like that somehow makes the fallout less visible. And I haven't looked straight into the mirror in over a week. Not really. Not because I'm afraid of aging. I've earned every line on this face. But there's something about my reflection lately that feels off. Like trying on a coat that used to fit, but now sits wrong on the shoulders. Still mine, just not quite me. Maybe you've had a moment like that, where you catch your own eye and think, wait, is that still who I am? And here's the thing. I wasn't trying to change anything. I wasn't booking a makeover or chasing youth. I was just tired of avoiding myself. Tired of the quiet little ache that came from not feeling at home in my own hair. I didn't cut it that day, didn't do anything drastic, but something softened, a tiny shift, like remembering a version of myself I'd quietly missed. And that shift, it's what started everything that followed. If any of this sounds familiar, you're not alone. You ever wonder why haircuts can feel like turning a page, even when no one else notices? Because it was never just about hair. It was about how we've shown up in the world through every stage. I still remember the way my mother used to part my hair, right down the middle, sharp as a line drawn with purpose. She'd smooth it back with her palms, not too gently, and tie it with a ribbon that never quite matched my outfit. I didn't love the style, but I loved the feeling, being tended to, known in that small, quiet way. Later, in high school, I begged for bangs. It felt like such a big thing back then, a new identity in a few snips. I walked out of the salon with a fringe that tickled my eyelashes and made me feel, somehow, more like myself. Or at least the self I was trying to become. Hair marked every chapter after that. The layered cut when I got my first real job, trying to look serious but still approachable. The home dye box I used at 2 a.m. after a breakup, hoping a new shade could make heartbreak feel a little less visible. The slow, quiet shift to gray, not all at once, but strand by strand. Like the years brushing past without asking permission. And funny how something as soft as hair can carry so much weight. Each style carried something with it. Excitement, rebellion, sorrow. The thrill of reinvention, the comfort of routine, the ache of something changing before I was ready. And now, when I run my fingers through it and find more scalp than I used to, there's a different kind of maybe that's why it's been hard lately, not knowing what to do with it. Because choosing a new style now doesn't feel like a look. It feels like a decision about who I am, or who I'm allowed to be. But maybe it's not about chasing a younger version of myself. Maybe it's about honoring the woman who's shown up through every strand, every stage, and letting her be seen again. Gently, honestly, as she is. Have you ever stood in front of the mirror, scissors in hand, and still not known what you're really trying to change? That was me last spring. I got bangs last spring. It was one of those maybe this will help moments. I thought, why not? Maybe a little fringe could soften things, lift the face, take a few years off. 2 days later, I was pinning them back with frustration and silently begging for them to grow, which they did eventually, in that stubborn, in-between way only bangs can. That's been the pattern lately. I try something. It doesn't feel right. So I undo it. cover it, grow it out, until I'm back to square one, staring at the mirror, unsure of who's looking back. Long hair feels like I'm holding on to a version of myself that isn't really here anymore. But short hair feels like I've let go too much, too fast. And that awkward mid-length, the one every stylist calls versatile, on me, it feels invisible. And once, while sitting at a cafe, I caught a glimpse of a woman in her 70s, silver bob, bold earrings, eyes that didn't flinch. She looked like she knew exactly who she was. And for a second, I wished I could borrow that certainty. There's no villain in this story, just a quiet tug-of-war between too much and too little. Between wanting to look put together and not wanting to try so hard. Between wanting to feel like myself and not knowing exactly who that is anymore. Some mornings, I tie it up in a clip, tell myself it's effortless, but it's not effortless. It's just resigned, because every change I consider feels risky, too bold, too boring, too not me. But what is me now? That's the question I keep circling, not just with my hair, but with how I dress, how I move through the world. There's a longing underneath it all, to feel seen, not just by others, but by the mirror. To look up and think, yes, that's still me in there. But lately, more often than not, I'm not sure, and I wish I had an answer, or even just a clearer question. We always think the shift will come with scissors, but sometimes it comes when we're not even trying. I wasn't planning on doing anything different that morning. Just a quick wash before errands. No decisions, no mirrors, no drama. But the part in my hair wasn't cooperating, so I flipped it to the other side. Didn't think much of it. I towel dried, left it a little damp, and moved on. No intention, no makeover. Just a flick of parting, a tilt of routine. An hour later, I caught my reflection in a store window, and I stopped. Not because I looked amazing. Let's be honest, I had zero makeup on, and probably lint on my sweater, but because something felt softer. Like I'd tilted the frame just a little, and suddenly the picture looked more forgiving. It was still my hair, still thinning, still grayer than not. But the way it fell, just slightly off-center, it framed my face differently. I looked more like someone I recognized, not younger. Not better, just. There was no audience, no compliments, no what did you do differently. But I felt something shift, a tiny drop of permission. Like maybe I didn't need to fix everything. Maybe I just needed to stop fighting it so hard. For the first time in a while, I touched my hair without a sigh, without that quiet little flinch that says, this isn't working. And I noticed something strange. I felt lighter, not in a grand, life-altering way, just enough to keep walking a little taller, to stand in the checkout line and not avoid my own reflection in the freezer glass. It wasn't a transformation. It wasn't even a plan. It was just a morning where something small didn't feel scary, and that was enough. Maybe the question was never, what style fits me? Maybe it was, what's one small shift that gives me back a little breath? If you found yourself stuck, somewhere between long and short, straight and soft, between should I try something new and what if I regret it? I want you to know, I've been there, still am some days, There's no magic solution I've found, but there are a few things that have helped in small, surprising ways, like switching my part, not for style, but just to feel something shift, like learning that a leave-in conditioner makes my hair feel less tired, and somehow, so do I. Or even just deciding not to apologize when I say, I don't feel like figuring it out today. And maybe that one is the most radical of all, giving myself permission to not perform effort. That one especially felt radical. None of it was dramatic, but each of them made room to breathe, to not rush towards some ideal, to just be in the not knowing. Because the truth is, I still don't have it figured out. Some mornings, I feel like I've cracked the code. Others, I wonder if I should just buy a hat and call it a season. But what's shifted is this. I've stopped seeing that confusion as failure. I've started seeing it as a kind of attention, a way of listening to myself again. I don't need to look younger. I don't need to impress anyone. I just want to look in the mirror and think, there you are. I see you. If you felt that shift too, even just a flicker, tell me. I'd love to hear what helped you come home to yourself, even for a moment. And when that happens, even for a second, it's enough. Each of us has our own quiet moment of return. And sometimes it's not loud. Sometimes it's just the way the light catches your hair and you don't flinch. Sometimes it's letting a few strands fall loose and choosing not to tuck them away. Maybe that's all we're trying to do. Find a shape we feel true in, even if it shifts tomorrow. Some rules we don't even realize we're obeying until they start making us disappear. I used to believe that letting my hair go gray meant giving up, that it told the world I'd stopped trying, that I'd stopped caring. I don't remember who taught me that. No one said it outright, but I absorbed it like secondhand smoke. Somewhere between shampoo ads and passing comments like, "She looks tired, maybe a color touch-up would help," I got the message. Polish meant purpose. Effort meant value. Youth meant worth. So I cut my hair short for years, not because I liked it that way, but because it felt safe, respectable, neat, and I covered every silver strand like it was a mistake, like someone might catch it and think less of me. But lately, I've started to wonder, who was I doing all that for? Because truthfully, I kind of like the softness that's come in with the gray. I like that my hair moves more now, that it has nothing to prove. And I like that I'm no longer forcing it into shapes that don't feel like me. I used to try so hard not to stand out, but deep down, I feared I wasn't even seen. It's funny in a quiet way. I spent years avoiding looking too much, too done up, too visible, too opinionated, and yet I also feared being not enough. What a narrow place to live in. If you've ever told yourself, I shouldn't wear that, or that style's not for someone my age, maybe, like me, you've been following rules no one asked you to. And maybe you don't have to anymore. No big declarations, no scissors in hand, just a simple choice. To stop trying so hard to disappear, to let softness be strength, to let enough be enough. Some mornings now, I let my hair fall however it wants, and I walk out the door without checking the mirror. And I feel free. Funny how we spend so long trying to fix the surface, only to realize it was never really about the surface at all. This morning, I pulled my hair back with the same old clip. Nothing fancy, nothing styled, just enough to keep it out of my eyes. And then, out of habit, I looked in the mirror, but something was different. Not in the reflection, really. In how I looked at it, there was no checklist running through my mind, no flinch, just a quiet recognition. The same lines, the same softness, but a little more kindness. I didn't think this looks perfect. I thought, there I am, not the version I used to be, not the one I thought I had to be, just the woman who's lived all these years and still gets to show up as herself. If you're somewhere in the middle too, between what you've been told and what you actually feel, I hope you know this. You're not late. You're not broken. You're just unfolding. You haven't lost yourself. You're still in there, under every unsure strand, behind every uncertain glance. And maybe the goal isn't to fix or change or figure it all out. Maybe it's just to keep seeing yourself a little more clearly, a little more gently, each day, because it was never really about hair. It was about feeling at home in your own eyes again.